This week, I'm going to try to change this space that once used to house a TV into something that's useful using some trim, some paint, and a 4-foot piece of pine board. Can I also make it attractive? Let's see what I can do. Hi, my name is Elizabeth. Welcome. I'm glad you could join me. This is the second in the series dedicated to making this 260 square foot multifunctional room that has a laundry, an entry, a media style built-in, and crafting area into something functional and what I hope to be attractive. I'm starting with the built-in here. I'm trying to decide what to call it. Renovate, redecorate, reimagine, repurpose. That's a good one. I'm going to repurpose the space. It needs to be emptied. I need to fill in the hole where the Starlink cable comes in from the outside, scuff sand, and paint. At the same time, the shelf and the shelf supports need to be painted. It should be a quick and an easy start to this project. I discovered when I took everything out that there's a gap here. But what really there is there's trim along the back and the right side, but not the left side. I'm going to try and take the trim that's there off and replace it. The space is empty and the trim's out. The next step I have is that corner. The connectors on the Starlink cable are really big. And I had to drill a really big hole in the house to get the cable through. And now I have to patch it. You can see right through. So that'll be my next trick. I've got a patch and some polyfilla and some insulation. So I just cut the patch and then I've cut a slit across here and a little hole in the middle. It has a sticky side, so it just stuck to the wall. So now I'll get some polyfilla out and use that to blend it into the wall. This is my makeshift workbench in the craft room for the projects as I get going. And the first thing I'm going to work on is the shelf. I'm going to fill some holes on it. I found a pretty good piece. There's one fairly large hole here and there's a couple divots on the other side. So I'm going to fill those and let them dry while I start painting the trim. So my plan is to paint the supports, and this is trim that I had purchased for another project and didn't use, so I didn't have to buy anything for that. So I'm going to paint these, the shelf, and the inside of the space. And there's my color. I hope I have enough paint. Ooh, I like it. I finished up painting the pieces of trim yesterday. I got 2 coats of paint on it. Painted one end that's going to be showing. I'm really, really liking this color. So next, the shelf. I filled in some holes and I let it dry overnight. I'm going to sand and put on a coat of primer. Okay, this paint that I'm using, I only bought a sample. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do in this green color. I think I have a better idea now, and it's going to be a lot more than what I originally thought. The sample sizes are really good for those smaller projects that you want to do. I used the sample size on the red for the kitchen because I really, as much as I have red accents in the kitchen, I don't want a lot of red paint in there. So just having a sample size was perfect. This I have a funny feeling I'm going to get more of. And that ends up being a bit more expensive when you buy the sample first and then the quart or the liter. But it can be more expensive if you buy the quart or the liter and discover that you really don't want to use the paint. I'm so happy with this color. Okay, one coat on one side almost done. I won't make you watch me paint all the coats and sides. This is going to take 2 coats. But there's pretty thin coats. One of the issues that I have with this house is not knowing what they've done before. So certain things in the kitchen I haven't dared do because I'm pretty sure that is a really thin paneling on the wall and not drywall. And I'm not even sure a plug would hold up in that instance. So here, I don't know what this is. It's like a tape. I don't know. It was stuck to whatever, I'm assuming this is drywall. It was stuck to it because it's peeled it off. But I'm going to have to plaster along here because it's not going to be covered by the trim. Because of the big gaps back here, this is quite a large gap, and there's gaps on the side, I'm going to put trim out. So I cut the trim. I just finished cutting it so I can determine where I need to plaster along here, because I don't really have to go all the way down. But all along the back here has to be plastered before I can paint. So I'm going to do the plastering now, and hopefully I will be ready to paint tomorrow. The plaster will be dry by then. This is the trim that I have. I've cut all the pieces. I'm just going to sand the ends and do a quick scuff sand, and then I'm going to paint it. This trim I bought for a project in my living room. The walls have paintable wallpaper on it, and they were not joined very well. And I bought this to as a decorative feature to cover the join, and it wasn't big enough. It wasn't wide enough, so I got something else. So instead of taking it back, I hung on to it. Now I'm kind of glad I did, because I've used almost all of it to cut out the trim for the built-in. So I'm kind of happy about that. There we go, that's a little bit better. I'm going to start with the other color that I've chosen for this room. It's sort of a creamy color, not quite white. With a bit of yellow and green. I'm hoping that it will complement the green that I've got on the shelves. So the whole inside of the built-in space will be this color. Okay, I think I am now finished with the plastering and the sanding. I just have to wipe everything down, and then I'm going to start painting. It is late. We had another power outage yesterday. I think it was 11 hours. So tomorrow I'm on my way into the city to get a generator. So I'm not going to be able to do a lot tomorrow. So I'm going to try and get, I've done the sanding and plastering, as I said. I'm going to try and get the first coat of paint on the interior of this, so that I'm a little caught up. I was really hoping to get this project done in the next couple days. I'd like to move on, but with this power outage situation, this is the third one. I really need to deal with this. Okay, I finished coat 1. I'm really spoiled. I've been using a lot of Behr paint, which is a paint primer 1. And as thick as it is, I don't know, for me there's pros and cons. I find the Behr paint very, very hard on my hands because it is so thick, and I find the carpal tunnel in my hands really, really bothers me when I'm painting with the Behr paint. But I'm going to have to do 3 to 4 coats on this. It's a lot easier on my hands, but it's going to take a lot more coats. So now you just pretend that you can see the difference and say how lovely it is, because in this light you cannot tell the difference. I can barely tell. This has got slightly more yellow. I don't know, it kind of shows along here, or maybe at the door against back there, slightly more yellow, which is what I was going for, a slightly warmer color than the stark white that was already here. So, you know, if you can't tell the difference, just pretend. Because that's all I'm doing at this hour of the night. Is just pretending it looks better until I can get a better view of the light and see if I missed any spots. That's the inside painted. 3 coats? 4 coats. 3 coats. It wasn't easy. I ended up painting my hair, my elbow, my knuckles, everywhere. You'd think that this little 4x2 space would be easy, but no, it wasn't. I'd rather paint the walls and the ceiling than do that again. It was pretty narrow, squishy, crammed in, and dark. It was very hard to see. Even with an extra light, it was difficult to do. But it's done. So now it's time to put the trim on and the supports for the shelf. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is add back in the plate to cover the electrical outlets. It's not what I really want, but right now I need it in order to determine exactly where the shelf supports are going. I don't want to put the shelf supports in such a position that I can't put a switch plate back on. First I'm gluing it, and then I'm using finishing nails. I've got 1-inch finishing nails, and in order to make sure that I don't scratch the part that I've painted, I'm using some foam board on the bottom to stop, the hammer from scratching the bottom. It seems to be working because I got the back piece on fairly easily. There's the trim along the bottom and along the top. I'm going to let the glue dry, do some caulking, and then fill in the nail holes and do a touch-up. I only bent 7 nails, broke one, hammered my finger twice, and knocked over the star link 3 times. I have the painter's tape to mark where the shelf is going to go. So I'm going to start to screw the screws in along here, just to make it easier to get it into the wall since I'm doing it by myself. I'm done for now. I've learned a lot. Expect delays. Isn't that the what you call it? Isn't that the mantra of renovations? If you think it's going to take an hour, it's going to take 2. I think I've learned that. Things like the plaster, which took 24 hours to dry, really slowed things down. The power failure didn't help. And having to do 3 coats with 4 hours in between for painting kind of brought things into perspective as to how long this project is going to take me. The other problem that I ran into is discovering that the back wall was drywall. And the silly thing is that I did know that early on, and I just didn't make the connection. So I discovered a gap. I'll show you here. And I looked on the other side and realized that this was drywall, and I was trying to screw in with 1-inch screws into drywall. So I did find the studs. They were all over the place. They weren't 16 inches on center. I'm not sure what they were, but when I used 2-inch screws to then screw in the supports, and I actually don't think I was hitting studs. It just didn't feel like it. There's this feeling of when a screw goes into wood with the drill, and it just didn't feel that way. So I'm not 100% confident of that top shelf. I'm just going to have to be careful about what I put on that top shelf. Although one side is definitely in wood, so the whole thing is not just going to up and collapse. Once I get closer to the room being finished, that's when I'll put in all the final design elements. There are certain things that I'm working on behind the scenes that aren't going to be ready for another little while. I tried this out last night with the lamp on, and I was really happy. It was exactly what I wanted. There was a soft glow in the corner. It gave some light, but not a lot. So I've definitely achieved what I set out to do. So I'm looking forward to the final design. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed doing all of this work, especially the paint colors that I chose. That's really made me happy. I will see you next time. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and I would love it if you would join our community. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.